I'm joined now by the co-founder of Run for Something and the author of the new book, When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership, Amanda Litman. Amanda, thanks so much for joining me.
Anytime, Brian.
So we're, of course, in a news cycle where there's yet more talk about Joe Biden's age, and this is really a small part of a broader theme that Democrats have been contending with, which is this idea of generational change, the title of your book, that we have, that we kind of thought would happen years ago and still hasn't happened. And so I'm curious now, especially as you run an organization where you're focused on bringing in candidates who are younger into the fold, into the party. How are you looking at this moment right now? And do you think that we are going to see something of a sea change similar to what the Tea Party did back in 2010 in the Republican Party, that we're going to see something similar in the Democratic Party, but with generational change being the basis for that?
100%. So since the election, in about the 6 months since November, Run for Something has had more than 45,000, mostly young people, folks 40 and under, raise their hands to say they want to run for office. That's more than we had in the first 3 years of Trump's first term. That is huge. So if even some of them actually get on the ballot for 2025 and run and win, we are going to see an entirely different Democratic Party after the 2026 election. And I think it couldn't happen soon enough.
So a big focus for me has been, I'm less intrigued about whether you're progressive or moderate, because I think we do need progressives in progressive districts. I think we need moderates in moderate districts, and I don't want to, stick a round peg in a square hole and expect it to fit. And so we do need that broad spectrum of folks. But really, the through line for me has been: are we going to have people in there who are actually willing to fight, as opposed to the Democratic Party of the past, or of the present, which is a party that's largely feckless, impotent, and weak. And so has that been a theme for the folks who you've spoken with, whether some of the 45,000 people who have expressed an interest in running, or the people who have actually gone through the process and are going to be on the ballot for 26?
100%. Yet again, you are getting it spot on, Brian. We are hearing from folks who are saying, if they're not going to fight for me, I'm going to fight for me. And I think this is in particular one of the reasons why the generational divide is so important here. Not exclusively, of course. There's certainly older leaders who have risen to the occasion over the last
Yeah.
6 months and shown us what is possible. But generally speaking, most of the leaders who have really proven they have what it takes to both fight in this moment and communicate that fight in this moment are some of the younger leaders, the millennials and Gen Z folks, and I'll give some younger Gen X too, who both have the stomach to fight and the skills to do so in a way that we need. And I think part of the reason they're able to do that is because they understand that Trump's Republican Party is not the Republican Party of George W. Bush or John McCain or Mitt Romney. It is Trump all the way down, and you cannot trust these people to be good faith actors or good faith negotiators. They don't want to build with us. They want to burn it down. And we got to take that same kind of fiery approach.
Another issue that's kind of been in the zeitgeist right now is the issue of primarying sitting Democrats. Obviously, this has kind of reared its head as it relates to David Hogg and the DNC, but just more broadly, I mean, we have a party where there are a lot of safe incumbents in the Democratic Party who are responsible for, this overarching sense of weakness within the party. And so how are you thinking about this? Are you just focused on battleground seats, or are these Democratic incumbents who have been in these cushy, safe seats for sometimes decades, are they on the target list as far as Run for Something is concerned as well?
So Run for Something exclusively focuses on state and local offices. But since 2017, so for the last 8 years, we have worked on races against incumbents. We've worked in competitive primaries. We've worked in open primaries. We've often worked with candidates running against each other. Primaries are good. Primaries are how we as a party decide what we believe. Now, more broadly, I think, especially in this moment when you're looking at the congressional level or other sort of bigger offices, personally, I've written about this in the last 6 months. I think every Democrat over the age of 70 should make this their last term. I think they should retire, go out the front door, define their legacy. We have seen leaders do that already. We've seen Gary Peters, Tina Smith, Dick Durbin, and others say, you know what? My time has come to pass the torch. We can celebrate them. We can honor the work that they have done. I think we're going to see older leaders who refuse to back down, who think that they deserve, are entitled to a claim to power, and they're going to get primaried, and it's not going to feel good or look good. But I think the outcome will be leaders who can better meet the moment. And if that's the incumbent who wins, great. You know what? Incumbents usually win. And if it's not, we're going to get someone who can really show up and do the work that needs to be done.
There will be pushback to something like that, and I do agree with that sense as well. But there will be pushback and say, like, look at somebody like Bernie Sanders, who's in his 80s, and he's largely the leader of the progressive movement, and I think a lot of people would say at the peak of his influence right now. And he does seem to be bringing in other folks. I mean, he's going on his nationwide tour with AOC, and so there's a very clear, I think. There's a very clear succession line that's building right now. But as it relates to somebody like Bernie, how does that factor into things?
Well, I should say Run for Something is partnering with Bernie Sanders to support all the folks who are signing up with him to run for office. And this is, I think, one of the first times he's ever done this, asking people, hey, jump in, get in the fight for city council or school board or library
Yeah.
board. All the people that Run for Something can work with, we are, which I am thrilled about. And he just ran for reelection. He's in a 6-year term. I think part of the reason he's doing so much work to build leadership beneath him is because I don't think he'll run again.
Yeah.
That's good. That he is actually, I think, modeling what we need more older leaders to be doing, which is bringing up folks behind them. It is so important that we have a deep and varied and diverse bench of talent in every state, in every kind of place. And the more that leaders can do that and understand that they're not the only ones who are fit to serve their communities, the better.
Can you talk too about this sense of like there is this overarching idea that a lot of our current leaders are entitled to positions of power or chairmanships or gavels, whatever it may be, by virtue of the amount of time that they've been there. And so doesn't that just create a structure where inherently within that, you're going to have folks who are the oldest people in Congress, have been there the longest, maybe the most out of touch, maybe the least able to adapt to the media as we use it right now. And so can you speak a little bit about what you would like to see in terms of the structure of power within the Democratic Party itself?
I think it's worth noting the Republican Party does not do this. When they think about chairmanships and seniority within their caucus, it does not have the same effect. It is not beholden to the same kind of like time served versus power reserved. Now, Democrats absolutely feel that way. And I think it is problematic. I think it is getting worse outcomes. We saw this with Jerry Connolly, who I interned for Jerry Connolly when I was in Congress. He was one of my members of Congress growing up. Great leader, not well suited to the moment. And we've seen this now as he's stepped away from his chairmanship of the Oversight Committee. That holding on to seniority kept one of the most talented communicators in the Democratic Party out of a position where she could be really holding Trump's feet to the fire.
Yeah.
AOC is a once in a generation talent, and we should be doing everything we can to lift her up. And I think if Democrats in Congress are able to put party and country above their own egos, they'd be able to see that too.
The book is When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership. Why was it important to write this right now?
So the book came about actually a couple of years ago, and it's really about much more than just politics, because a thing I don't think people realize, the youngest boomer is going to hit retirement age in 2030. And we are seeing the crumbling of gerontocracy, of systems run for and by old people across nearly every sector: Hollywood, entertainment, tech, education, university, science, all across these spaces. We're about to be at a tipping point where millennials and Gen Z are going to be running things. And the book is really a guide on how we, millennials and Gen Z, can and need to do it differently. Because the systems and structures that got us to this point are not well suited to get us to the next one in a way that is both effective and also humane and compassionate and boundaried, in a way that I like to describe the book as a guide to how to lead people without being shitty to the people you lead.
When you were writing this, did you discover anything in the process?
So to write the book, I built it on my experience of 8 years running Run for Something, and years before that managing teams. I started managing people when I was 24 years old. But I knew that I know a lot about politics. I know a lot about my space. There's a lot I don't know. So I put out a call to interview people, and I ended up talking to more than 130 folks across every kind of sector and every kind of leadership. I talked to faith leaders and school directors. I talked to a woman who works at the Nike headquarters in Oregon, and VC guys, and nonprofit executives and union organizers, like all kinds of leaders. And I learned that across basically every sector, we're all experiencing the same challenges. We're all dealing with how do you show up to the office and manage when the office is Slack and Zoom? How do you think about posting on social media when the people you manage follow you there? How do you set up guardrails so that people can work hard and get stuff done, but also be full people outside of work? Knowing that this was not just a challenge I was facing, but that we were all facing, I think really helped make the book hopefully something that people read and they feel seen and they have the language to talk about their challenges. And also, both from my experience and the people I interviewed, solutions for them. Because I didn't want to just describe how things are, I wanted to give advice for how things could and should be.
And so what's the biggest intersection between the lessons that you were able to convey with this book and the lessons that we need to be bringing in as it relates to politics moving forward?
It's such a good question. It's one I've been thinking about a lot. The biggest advice that I give to any next gen leader in politics, in business, in community spaces, wherever, is you got to know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, which feels really obvious. Like, duh, you got to know yourself. But I think this is part of the problem with the Democratic Party right now
Yeah,
is we don't have a clear set of values.
correct.
We don't really know what we stand for. And the candidates and elected officials who are able to rise in this moment do. Like
Correct.
they have conviction. We don't always have to agree on everything, but they know what they are. And then the question becomes not what do I believe, but how do I communicate what I believe?
Yeah,
Whether you're a boss or a candidate for office, you got to know what you stand for.
perfectly put. Well, where can we grab the book?
When We're in Charge is available wherever books are sold. You can also get it at your local library. Love to support that. But you can find it online at whenwe'reincharge.com.
Great. I'll put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll put it in the show notes. Amanda Litman, thank you as always for the work that you're doing right now and that you've been doing for years and years and years that we've been talking. And highly recommend for anybody watching that you grab the book.
Thanks, Brian.